to Drummers Only Radio. Drummers Only is the UK's leading drum shop with store locations in Glasgow and Leeds. Our podcasts are full of interviews, gear reviews, and much more from the unique perspective of a drum shop. The show is hosted by two pasty Scottish dudes who talk real fast. Whoa, slow down there, Braveheart. So here's Chris, the Glasgow shop manager, and Adam, the social media manager. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let's do this.
Good evening, Adam.
Good evening, Chris. How are we?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well. I've just realised we said good evening, but people might be listening to this in the morning.
Do you know the funny thing is I was listening to a podcast earlier that said good night, and I was listening to it at 11 a.m.
Well, that's interesting. That.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, Chris.
It's breakfast somewhere around the world.
It is. It's 11 o'clock somewhere. Anyway, anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
But what is very on topic is the name of our guest. I don't know where I was going with that.
Okay, Drummers Only Radio, episode number 42, with the amazing, wonderful Simon Edgoose. How are you, Simon?
I thought I'd give you a few seconds just to get scared. Hello. Hello.
Thanks.
Should we just start this one by just very, very quickly filling in what happened last time?
Absolutely.
Would that be right? Okay. Last time, this was before you actually went on. You did number one properly, isn't it? And we did this, and for some reason, I had turned something off on my computer, and the whole take was ruined by.
It was a compression thing because you had been teaching drums over Zoom. Yeah. I think. And this was like lockdown 1.
It was actually almost a year to the day. Can you believe it?
Yeah,
there you go. And it's taken us that long to get our finger out to actually reinvite you.
It took us this long to build this beautiful backdrop behind us, so we thought we can't do it any other way.
Yeah, it looks great. It does look really, really good. But thank you for having me back properly this time, and always good to see you. So,
well, you too. The profitable thing for everyone is Yamaha released a new product, so there's all that to talk about as well, which we didn't have this time last year. So that's great.
That's a good point.
For people listening or watching who don't know who Simon is basically a tech wizard. Is probably not even strong enough of adjectives to describe just how intelligent Simon is, especially when it comes to e-drums and technology. So for the last 15 or so years, probably longer, he's been a consultant on a variety of things, both electronic and branding-wise.
Yeah,
well.
Yamaha's UK demonstrator for all electronic products. And you've been key in the development of some new products over the last 5 years?
Probably. I think what we're talking about is the new DTX6.
Mm-hmm.
I first talked to people in Japan about that in about 2017. So in about 4 years.
Wow, about 4 years ago. Yeah.
So how does the product design process work?
Oh, that is a very, very long story. Right. Well, what generally happens is whenever there is a product out, everyone always has suggestions. And so everyone thinks, oh, it'd be good if that was whatever. It'd be good if that did that. It would make my gig easier, which is the normal one, if it did this.
So you mean consumers?
Consumers, end users. So people who are actually using this day to day, and electronics of all sorts, and eventually, ideas get back to people like me and the guys who actually sell the gear, and all these ideas come back to a central location, and there's lots of talking and lots of planning and just sort of, well, what about if we did this? What about if we did that? What about if we took this product, took that bit from that product, put this in it, and then did that, and then put this in for good measure? So it's so complicated. It's you would think it's quite an easy thing to bring a new piece of gear, whether it's acoustic drums or electronic drums, to market. It's a nightmare. It really, in the best possible way, but it's not straightforward at all.
Yeah, I can imagine it's complicated because there's so many things to think about beyond just market constraints and what products are already there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a brand ethos even to hold up. We've been talking a lot in the shop about our brand, so I can imagine from a brand like Yamaha's point of view, they have to keep that history but evolve it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when it's probably best if when I'm not just talking about just Yamaha stuff. I'm just talking about lots of different stuff, because I've been involved with other companies as well in different things. Electronic drums, it's always been Yamaha, but in cymbals and blah blah blah. And it's there's nothing. This happens all the time, but there's nothing worse than approaching whoever needs to be told these brilliant ideas, and you tell them the idea and they go, that is absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately we can't use it because, and then they'll give you a big long reason why. But that happens all the time, and that happens in probably every, whether it's car development or speaker development or TV development. So it's really interesting. I never thought it would be this interesting, if I'm honest.
Is reverse engineering still a thing that happens a lot?
Well, there's one company out there who does an awful lot of reverse engineering, but they're not in the electronic drum world, so I'm not going to talk about them. No, all the big companies, the day-to-day companies that we know very well, they try and push forward with new stuff. But in another part of the market, yes, reverse engineering is very, very profitable. I mean, if you look at, and also, depending on where in the world, the patent laws are different in different parts of the world. So a company might take out a patent on something amazing in the West or in America or in Europe or something like that, and then someone in, let's say, China goes, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to make that and sell it for a tenth of the price," and it's actually, the legal side of that is actually really tricky. But generally, all the big companies, they all do stuff very, very by the book, because no one wants to have any risk.
Yeah, sure. And I guess after a certain point, the tech is commonly known anyway.
Yes, but that's... Yeah.
So there's no need to get inside the box and figure out what's going on, because most people, I would imagine, that are designing these things kind of know what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's the world of patents when it comes to musical instruments is a minefield. And you could have a really good idea. One could have a really good idea, approach the biggest manufacturer in the world of that particular product about it, and they go, almost like I said earlier, they go, that's absolutely brilliant, but you're infringing on the patent of blah, blah, blah. So we can't use it. And that's happened to me more than once. So, it's just life, but it just makes you look in slightly different directions.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, have you... And you don't need to name the product or anything, but have you ever been on the side of the fence where you've went to places and you've trialed products and you've went through all the R&D and all the development process, and then that product's just never seen the light of day?
Not in with any of the companies I've been involved in, but I have, yes, definitely. And also, things come to market. Something happened. A kit came out, an electronic kit came out ages ago, and I saw it at a music fair somewhere in Europe, and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting. Right, let's go and have a look at this." So I went and had a look at it, had a play on it. It was really good, and something was bugging me about it, and so I went up to the most important person on the stand and said, "Can you just ask me how you're getting around the fill in the gaps patent?" And they looked at me blankly and went, "What patent?"
Oh,
and that never went any further. And that happens. It happens all the time. That happened to me with another company where they wanted to put something to market, and they just said, "Look, out of interest, if we were going to do this, what would you do?" And I'd say, "Well, I wouldn't take it to market because you're going to get sued." And they looked at me and went, "Oh, okay." And that was it. It's really strange. I mean, obviously, one thing I should say, if you're listening to this, hoping to listen to lots of paradiddle stuff and flammacues and all that sort of stuff, sorry, I do that, but yeah, this is so apologies. Yeah.
So, over the stuff that you've been involved with over the years, regardless of brand, would you consider it to be as close to maybe a signature product as one may get in the electronic industry?
What?
So, like,
what
if you've
anything-
been, if you've
Oh, I
seen
see.
your opinion put forward and created, it becomes a kind of Simon stamp almost. Is that a stretch?
No, that would no. I'm not. No, I've never considered anything my product. That's there's so many people involved. I mean, you go to Yamaha's headquarters in Hamamatsu, and you go to the area where whatever I'm working on is being developed, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people working on stuff, and so no one person can take credit for anything. It's such a massive group effort.
Yeah. It's like an ecosystem, isn't it? Everything just kind of blends into each other, and it all just comes together like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's probably a naive question, but I took a punt.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no. I mean, it makes total and utter sense because I mean, I would have asked exactly the same question.
Yeah, because your opinion's obviously valued. They obviously seek it out for a reason. Whoever the brand is, they're coming to you because you know what you're talking about.
I would hope so.
Well, the whole career's been built around it. So if you don't, you've pulled the wool over everyone's eyes for a long time.
So where did that interest in electronics come from? Like, was that something you've always been involved with, or?
I've always been involved with it. Right from day one, I started playing when I was 8, and I reckon I got into electronics when I was about 12. Mm-hmm. Actually, I know exactly what happened. What it was a friend of mine who was did lots of techie stuff said, "Oh, I'm talking to a company. There's a company who make electronic drums nearby. Should we go and see them?" And and he rung them up, and they went, "Yeah, come over and have a look." And this was Cymbals. Cymbals being one time in the 80s the biggest massive electronic drum manufacturer in the world. This is when they were a bit in their heyday, and they were in quite a small building at that time, and they just sort of went, "Yeah, look, if you need anything, just give us a deal." So I sort of had an unofficial Cymbals deal when I was about 15 or so.
Wow, that's wild.
Not as an endorser, but sort of, if I needed anything, they were like, "Yeah, sure, we'll sort you out." Yeah, fine, great. And so I started using that Cymbals gear when I was 15, 16, and actually, I must have been 17 because I was driving, so I was 17. And it just sort of went from there. And then I've always just stuck with electronics. I just, obviously, I play a lot of acoustic stuff. Behind me, you can't see any on that screen anyway, can you? There's acoustic kits over there and all that sort of stuff. And I love acoustic kits, and nothing will replace an acoustic kit. But I really love the tech.
You and I talk a lot about all of this stuff because of customer things and interests and other things, and it's only this year when I bought the new DTX6 that I've kind of got it into my noggin that they're two different instruments. And totally. I think there's still a massive thought process that an electronic kit is a replacement for an acoustic kit, and it's kind of not really.
No, it's exactly the same as a grand piano and a synth.
Yeah.
A synth could do a really, really good impression of a grand piano, but you aren't going to sit down and play some Rachmaninoff in Royal Albert Hall on a synth. It's just not right. But if you wanted to do lots of film soundtrack stuff, the synth is a perfect instrument to do it on. So it's just about horses for courses. And you're totally 100% right. It's not the same thing, but it shares a lot of things.
Yeah, but it's even coming down to the way you play it, the physical touch on the instruments.
You almost kind of have to learn how to play it.
Absolutely, the amount of stuff you have to cut out of your playing that you wouldn't actually play on an acoustic kit because the thing won't pick it up the same way as
like
wild.
the nuances that you would play on an on acoustic kit would just, depending on obviously the make, model, and the pad and all the sensitivity and all that, unless you out of the box, like, you know, a lot of people don't realise that you have to dial that stuff in, so they'll listen to it back, and, you know, I mean, Simon talks about this a lot, about, I remember we had you in clinic maybe 2 years ago, talking about the EAD10, and someone asked you a question about electronic kits, and they were just like, oh, I don't understand how, you know, like, I play an electronic kit and it just doesn't feel like my playing, and you quite rightly said to them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Every single time you buy a new product, new electronic kit, anything like that, you have to set it up for you. And most people don't. Most people set it up and they play it with the same settings that somebody who built it thousands of miles away gave it, because it gave a good overall setting. But it doesn't. You need to set it up for you. And it's one of the biggest. Actually, it's one of probably the most satisfying things I do, is going to see someone and they go, this kit is fill in the blank word. It's not, it just doesn't do that. It doesn't. Yeah. Right. And it's like, okay, have you set it up? What do you mean? Okay, let's try this. Right. So go through all the, you know, there's I know there's 5 or 6 things you've got to do, and you've got to do them in order. You do them in order. And then suddenly it's like, oh, wow, this is completely and utterly different. So if you have electronic gear, you've got to set it up for you. We all play differently. We all use different sticks. We all got different technique. That's the main thing. We all have different techniques. So you need to set it up to suit you.
Do you think that comes out of the prevalence of and sales of lower end models, where you might not necessarily have the capacity to do that in the same way as you would with something if you spend over £1,000?
No, I think it comes down to sales talk, basically.
Right.
I think it is completely down to companies, you know, going, oh, no, you don't need to set it up. No, just sit down and play it. Well, yeah, you can, and it'll be 80% all right. But most serious players aren't happy with 80% right. They want it to be 99% right.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever 100% right. An acoustic kit isn't 100% right, but we sort of get used to its idiosyncrasies and everything else. So it's just one of those things. You just need to sit down, know what you're doing, or ask someone like me to show you what to do, and then it generally takes 10 minutes, and it's a completely different kit.
It's funny because keyboard players that's how they are. That's how they think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they would think nothing of spending 2 nights of dialing in a new board.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, but as I go up the keyboard, I wanted to get lighter. Well, okay, great. I mean, you can do exactly the same thing on a E-kit as well, and you need to do it. One thing that I filmed a video this week about using the new Yamaha module with some different pads. And one thing that I said in there, which a few people have actually sort of texted me and go, did you mean to say that? And it's totally right, is if you've got an electronic kit, you will have seen something called velocity curves. And velocity curves are how quickly it gets from quiet to loud as you, how quickly the sound gets from quiet to loud as you play from quiet to loud. The most satisfying kit I've ever played had a different velocity curve on each pad. Because how we hear our bass drum, how we hear our snare drum, how we hear our rack toms to our floor toms, and how we want them to respond is completely different. And on an acoustic kit, it does do that. And you can set it up on an electronic kit to do it. We are getting incredibly technical here. I'm very sorry, everybody. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I think the education side of it is vastly, vastly important, and it's kind of overlooked. I think you're kind of feels like you're a wee bit on a one-man mission to change that. You know,
yep,
especially with the launch of this new kit, the videos that I've seen you put out are like, oh wow, this is some, you know,
deep diving.
Yeah, absolutely. But making that commonplace for drummers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult. It's a tightrope because you know what I'm like. I mean, if you let me off the leash, I will get really, really technical and really in depth, and most people don't get that. And I completely understand when I'm the only person in the room talking to myself, and everyone else is going, back away, back away. So you know, it's so I completely get that. So it's a tightrope getting the technical stuff on one side and the everybody, or 90, you're never going to get everybody, but you can get sort of 90% of people to go, oh, I get it now. That's what that's for. I get it. So
it was quite fascinating when you did the EAD10 event in Glasgow. Like there was a few moments of that where you saw everyone in unison's head kind of tilt to the left and go,
yeah,
oh, okay, like almost like in sync. It was quite amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and it's on really obvious stuff that everyone sort of takes for granted, and that's what my I think that's what my personal mission is against people taking things for granted. Everyone takes things for granted, and to get the best out of anything, you've got to read the manual. You've got to read the manual, and you've got to have a little bit of knowledge. You can't just go cold into stuff.
Do you think there's a responsibility with brands to make it a little easier for people to swallow?
Yeah, but then they wouldn't sell so many.
Okay.
It's a thing. If you are a company, you want if you're a company, you want people to buy your gear, love it instantly, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And everyone wants that, but you can't get everybody to understand how an electronic kit works. Everything in an electronic kit works just by opening up the box, setting it up, and playing it. So when you set up an electronic kit, 80%, 70%, 60%, whatever of the time, and you will be happy, you'll be satisfied, and everything else. But I'm always trying to push the envelope with people. I'm always trying to get them to do something else. Like, the first time you get someone to load a sample into a kit and they go, oh, wow, that's brilliant. And it's like, well, you've been able to do it since you owned the kit, but you've only just understood now how to do it. So now you can do it all the time. And they're like, great, that's fantastic. So it's, I'm always trying to push it so that people, I often get it wrong. I often aim much too technical and shoot over people's heads, and they go, "What on earth is he on about?" But I'll try and take as many people with me as I can.
Well, kind of on that note, then, so for drummers who are maybe just kind of starting to dip their toe in the water of electronics, and that whole side of it, or maybe the older generation who maybe aren't, electronics was like a thing that was like the future, they didn't have like an SPDSX, or they had a DTX multi or whatever beside them at all times on every gig. Where's the best kind of starting point for those players?
Okay, the best starting point is buy a brand that you know, because the bigger the company, the more research and development they will have go into it, and the more effort they will make to try and just get it working, and just get it. So you take it out of the box, set it up, and go bang. So buy something which you recognize the name of. Buy the best thing that you can. I think that's the biggest thing. Yes, you can go and buy a kit for 150 quid, or you can get something off eBay for 50 quid. It's not going to do the job. Depending on what the job is. If you just want to practice at home, then a 300 quid kit is going to be absolutely perfect. But if you try and take a 300 quid kit on stage, you'll probably be a little bit disappointed. So if you're touring, then obviously you need to spend a lot of money. And most of us who are all in the middle, then we do something else in the middle, and we find something. But get the best thing you can for the money.
It's funny because we've had experiences with electronic drums where they've come back broken, and they've bought a sort of off brand, if you like, and it can so sour the taste in people's mouths. Yeah. For what otherwise could have been a really positive experience.
Absolutely. And that is what the companies are up against, because that's why they try and make it so you can just take it out of the box and play it, and it's going to be 80% or whatever right. Because it only takes one thing, and that's going to, that is going to sour people's relationships.
Yeah. So what's your approach? Do you prefer A to E, making an acoustic kit, an electronic kit, or do you prefer an actual electronic kit?
As far as I'm concerned, it all comes down to the module.
Okay.
If the module is good, then it doesn't actually matter what is triggering it. I'm a bit of a, as you know, I'm a bit of a geek, and I love trying stuff. So when the stuff crops up on eBay, stuff from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, I'll buy it just to try it if I haven't got a lot of experience of it. So I've got, sort of old drum pads from the 80s, which everyone else would go, oh, what on earth are you doing with those? But if the module's good, it doesn't matter. You can, it's the module which is the important thing. It doesn't matter if you've got the world's most expensive looking pads, which look like a real kit, if the sound is not great, if it's not going to do the job. And I always, sort of, whenever a new kit comes on the market, I look at it and go, right, okay, how can it help me? I always treat myself as though I'm a consumer and I'm buying it. And how many acoustic drum kits could I buy for that? And what would I prefer?
Okay.
Would I prefer to buy a really nice acoustic drum kit with microphones and cymbals and blah blah blah, or would I prefer to buy that kit? And it's a balance. My opinion does not suit most. It won't necessarily make everyone go, oh, well, that's brilliant then. But
you are an authority, though.
Yeah, you've got an informed kind of
you've got an
decision.
informed opinion, and you understand it in a way that not everybody does. So
that's very kind of you. But in the way that all of us do when we get to being adults, we do generally think, why did he? Well, I don't know. I mean, that's very kind. I mean, I think it's just the 10,000 hour principle. If you want to learn how to do something really well, you've got to spend 10,000 hours. And I have definitely spent 10,000 hours messing about with electronic drums and pads and all that sort of stuff. So I guess it's just
how many of those pads over time have you got it and got really excited and then got it back home and thought, oh shit, this is actually terrible?
No, I mean, I've got to the stage now where I can suss something fairly quickly. There was one kit which appeared at the Frankfurt Music Show when the Frankfurt Music Show was running. So we're talking years ago. And I remember grabbing a pair of sticks, going onto the stand, sitting down, and in about 3 seconds, I knew that I sussed it in about 3 seconds and went, that's not very good. But then you go on other things. That's the other thing, is you just sit down at something and you try something, or someone gives you a prototype. This is what I always wanted to do when I was a kid growing up, was mess about with prototypes. Prototypes are the pre-release versions of stuff, because they're generally the only ones in the world, or there's only 3 or 4 of them in the world. And there's nothing better than sitting down with a prototype of something, hitting it once and going, that's it. That's it. And that is really good. And that's happened quite a few times.
Oh, cool.
The more time you spend doing anything, the quicker you get at going, that's good, that's not.
Yeah.
Makes you think we had a podcast guest on last year, the year before last, a guy called Johnny Scott, who's local to us. He plays for a band called Churches.
Yeah.
And he bought some Simmons pads for the stage because they look amazing. He was like, it's like hitting concrete. It's just, it's just right. It was getting to the stage where he was gonna maybe have to stop because it was the pain was not
worth it. Yeah.
You watch all those old videos of Alex Van Halen and he's got Simmons pads everywhere. You're like, Jesus, how does he do that night after night, man?
I did a tour ages ago and with an 80s artist, and I put some Simmons pads on my rig, but purely for show. Not to hit, because it was just like, I don't want they do look fantastic. I've actually got some in there, and I love them. I love how they look. They're terrible to play, but they just look fantastic.
It's like Bozio and Missing Persons when he's standing up and all that, Yeah, amazing.
We did a video with Johnny, and I went to the venue where they were playing. And I just remember seeing him on stage, because there was occasionally the bits where the camera would go up close to the artist and all that, and it went up close to Johnny at one point, right as he was hitting those Simmons pads, and his face could say, "I'm having a great time," but his eyes were saying, "This is horrific. Yeah.
Ow!
Like, and you're playing in an arena, so it's like arms away, but it's all part of the package, isn't it?
Totally.
It's funny. You mentioned synths versus pianos, which is really strange because I have a question about that. Because I'd spoken, there's a customer who we have who was asking, or he was talking about one day, what are a drum company ever going to make an electronic kit or an electronic kit product that doesn't, its sole purpose is not to replicate an acoustic kit and to do something wildly different, like a synth versus a piano?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got it. I mean, there's things like the Nord drum,
Right.
and the wave drum, the Korg wave drum. I mean, yes, they are sort of percussion based because we hit them with sticks, but it's not designed to sound like a 1960s Ludwig or a 1959 Slingland or something like that. But no, I mean, melodic stuff. This is going back to Simmons. That we've how come we talked about Simmons twice already? This will be the third time. Right. So Simmons, when Simmons first came out, and the wonderful Bill Bruford was using Simmons, his whole thing was, I don't want these to be drums. I want these to be melodic things and stuff like that. And that's what he did. But it didn't really, it hasn't really resonated with drummers. I mean, it's changing so that, when we're on stage, we're not hitting pads and triggering loops and loops. We're not triggering tunes. I mean, if anyone wants to see some really, really clever stuff, you've got to check out Akira Jimbo. Akira Jimbo sounds like a drum kit and a bunch of sequencers and synths, and it's just him triggering stuff off pads. Yeah. But what we are doing now, and you'll find more and more drummers doing this on function gigs, is they'll be triggering Ableton, or they'll have a pad and they'll start and stop the backing tracks. They'll have a pad and they'll trigger the backing vocals, or the string quartet in the middle eight or something like that. That's really common. I mean, I haven't with my programming head on, I haven't done any. I haven't worked with any bands recently who haven't done that. I mean, everybody. That's what everybody does. When you go and see a band, the musicians on stage are probably making 70% of the sound. The other 30% is on, it's going to be on a computer or on a hard drive somewhere. That's just how it is now. Because if it didn't sound like I can't say record because we don't sell records anymore. But if it doesn't sound like the track, then it's, we get a bit disappointed. So it's got to sound like the track.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I remember hearing a conversation from Joe Clegg, who played for Ellie Goulding. And he's like, you look at Reading and Leeds, or you look at any big festival, 95% of the bands, the drummer's got an SPDSX beside them, or or equivalent, because it's just how things are now. It's just like you're basically. In fact, I think it may have been a customer here we were speaking to, Jamie, where he's like, if you don't have that, you're competing with everyone else who does have that, and it's like, if it's you not having it, you're going to sound inferior to someone who does, purely because it's like you said, they have to sound like in bunny ears the record, so they're going to sound more pro because they've got all those frequencies in there that need to be there. They've got all the layers, the samples, whatever. And if you just turn up and don't have that now, you're not even in the same league.
No. I mean, it's weird actually. In the last couple of weeks, I've been having regular meetings with a drummer in Australia, and they are sort of catching up now with how we are at the moment with drummers using triggering Ableton and stuff. And this guy, I mean, he's in his 60s, I would guess.
Wow.
Sorry, Peter, if you're listening. I don't know how old you are, but anyway. And he's like, right, I need to get my head around this. I need to, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's just like, right. And showing someone the power of, I keep referring to Ableton because there's nothing quite like Ableton. But showing someone the power of Ableton and how it can help drummers on stage control basically everything, it's just fantastic.
It feels like it's a new language. It's almost like it's as important for drummers to learn that as it is to learn rudiments.
Yeah, I mean, it is now. I mean, basically, when we're playing live, most of the time we are just going poof, gat, boofed, get, boofed, get. But hopefully in time rather than the version which I did. And then you've got the mental capacity to do all this other stuff at the same time. I mean, that's assuming it's a covers band, it's a function band. It's not something like Porcupine Tree, because I'm sure Gavin's got lots of things occupying his head when he's playing all of the stuff that he does. But yeah, so I mean, it's becoming the norm that there is there's another layer underneath.
Yeah, but even look at that, like Craig Blundell, who plays for Stephen Wilson. He's triggering a bunch from underneath the stage and stuff at times. You know, he's been fairly open about all that. You know, like he might have the kit rigged to TD50 and to create the drum sounds that Stephen wants live. You know, because not everybody gets to be an artist.
I mean, and also it's like you said about triggering sounds. So the before we all went into lockdown, I did the programming for the drum programming for the Who for the tour, which was going out with the orchestra, and they got in contact because the Who are a loud band. You're not going to see them, and if
two of them are deaf anyway. So
exactly, yeah. And they wanted to do a tour with an orchestra, and so Zach Starkey, Ringo's son, is the drummer, and Zach is just the most amazing drummer, and also he's got an amazing setup kit as well. But that's enough for another podcast sometime. And they wanted to do this, and you can't have an acoustic drummer like Zach playing with an orchestra because the orchestra's just not loud enough. Zach had to go into electronics, so they got hold of me, and we ended up programming a load of stuff. And so Zach was playing a kit, a DW kit with some pads built into it, and we were triggering something called Superior Drummer, and it sounded brilliant. It sounded fantastic. We did all the programming in this country, and then the whole rig went off to Florida where they were doing the first gig. So I mean, not even the drum sound that it, to the audience, it looked like Zach was playing an acoustic kit. But none of that sound was coming from the kit. It was all coming off MacBooks and everything else. So I mean, that's the norm. That's it. It's not drum kits and microphones a lot of the time anymore.
Yeah. I have this conversation with my missus's folks all the time. If we're sitting watching the television and we have, like, say, I don't know, for example, Gary Barlow is on the television with his band. Yeah. Like, I can tell because, I've spoken to enough people in the industry now, and, as a drummer as well, you can tell that, like, there's no way that they're actually playing that kind of stuff. But it's amazing just the illusion that it creates, for people who aren't in that mindset at all, to be like, they sound really tight and really good. And I'm just like, MacBook's doing a really great job there playing that backing track, like
absolutely. I mean, but it happens at all levels. I was doing a function gig in a hotel probably 10 years ago, and it was for a massive wedding, for a massive society wedding, and there were two bands, and we were the second band. And the first band went on, and drum kits, electronic kits, keyboard player, two guitars, three singers, all this sort of stuff. And me and the rest of the guys in the band that I was playing with, we were standing at the side of the stage going, "There's something not right. Something not right here. What on earth is it?" And basically, the whole band were miming, and it was all being played from the keyboards. But it was done so well that the four of us were going, "Hang on, there's just what is it? What is it?" And then it's just like, "Hang on." And then when you see it, it's just like, "Wow, brilliant." Kudos to the band. I mean, it looked fantastic. It sounded amazing, but it was completely false.
Surely it's like it's a point of pride, man.
But it depends what the bottom line is.
Okay.
If you're doing something where you need it to be guaranteed 100% right, then I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it does happen. It's like DJs. Oh, sorry, go on. Well,
I've been in situations like that where I've done theatre shows and main stage has gone down in the first act, and the keyboard player's starting to sweat bullets because their MacBook won't restart in time, and we've lost the keys too for the whole of the first act. So it's like it's a real delicate balance with all that stuff, man. Because when you're trying to make it sound great for the audience, and then all of a sudden it doesn't, something's missing, or there's a cue that a singer needs that's not there anymore because the computer's not got the processing power to handle it, and
but when you get up to a certain level, then that
of course
never happens because there's
B rig and C rig and D rig, but
yeah. I mean, there's one very big band who I know go out with 96 tracks of audio running as well.
Holy shit!
That and they're basically running the whole of the album, all the multi tracks from the album. And and they can basically do whatever they want, and it's really flexible, and it sounds great. And there is 50% of what the audience is hearing is the band, but the other half is other stuff. But it's sort of that. But that's the norm. That's the norm.
Yeah, budgets and all that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially smaller touring productions where one person can do it as opposed to 8. I mean, the theatre world, it's been normal for horns to triple for 30 years, 40 years, you're playing 4 parts. So I get it. It's just, I'm a hardware on the stage guy as opposed to a software on the stage guy. Computers on the stage freak me out.
Yeah, you've spoken about that a lot.
I've never had a problem. I've only ever had a problem once, and that was the 80s artist who I toured with earlier, who I mentioned, and is a very good reason I haven't mentioned who it is. The last gig we did was at Colston Hall in Bristol, and the engineer, everything was running through Ableton, and the engineer did an update 20 minutes before we went on stage. I know, of all the things you don't do that. But it just, for whatever reason, he did it. And he's a fantastic engineer. But for whatever reason, that happened, and the whole rig shut down for the last 8 bars. But the audience sung the last 8 bars.
Well, that's convenient.
But like my wife's brother plays guitar in an ABBA tribute band, and he's had things like his Wi-Fi's just cut out on the stage, man. He runs from a Kemper, and it's all electronic, so there's like range issues and all these things that you can't really foresee.
But that's the thing, you the more you do it, the more you learn not to trust Wi-Fi, not to definitely don't trust Bluetooth. It only takes a few extra people in the room with their Bluetooth on their phones, and that Bluetooth is non-functional. Wi-Fi, you just can't trust it. So,
but they had their own routers and all that. They brought it all with them.
Yeah. If you're doing that, then great. But even then, I mean, you still need backups. You always need backups. I can think of tours where there's at least 3 full backups.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm unfairly making the comparison between pro and local level.
Well, yeah, but local level is getting more pro all the time. I mean, it's going to be, you talk to people and you go, wow, you've really got your life sus. That's fantastic. Whereas 10 years ago, someone, not 10 years ago, but someone having a computer on stage, you'd go, really? Nowadays, you don't think anything of it. You're running your backing tracks, you're running your Kemper, you're running your Superior Drummer, you're running anything else. It's all quite common.
I think the software thing freaks me out, because we put on Drum Show a few years ago. Yeah, and one of the headline artists had his Mac beside him, and he was pedaling his hi-hats, and the Mac bounced from he had a flight case, and the stage was a little bit too springy, and it bounced, and it cut the track. And then from there, his focus was the computer. You could see it broke it all. Like he couldn't get himself back into the zone to carry on, and I think he ended up cutting his set short, because it kind of broke the illusion. you know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's these what do they call it in the theatre? It's the third wall, isn't it? Or whatever it is. I can't remember.
Wall.
Yeah, fourth wall. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, you've got to keep that illusion going. Yeah, you can't. And it's absolutely. I mean, God, if you went to see a really, really big band and suddenly everything went quiet, you'd spend the rest of the gig expecting it to go quiet at any second.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep it going. Yeah. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you kind of touched on it there as well, but like, you know, local scene is getting a little bit more pro, and like 10 years ago, a laptop on the stage would have been like, oh, that's a bit hairy. But even now, like, I remember I took the EAD10 to a gig because the band I worked with at the time, anyway, this band, like, they were so used to just putting microphones on the kit and all that kind of stuff. And when I just brought out this little magic black box that I was like, no guys, honestly, this is going to work, I promise you. They were all skeptical about it, you know, and it wasn't till, you know, nowadays, like, I mean, maybe not right now, but, you know, people are using the EAD10 left, right and centre ever since it came out. It's not really that, like, it's not one of this, that was this weird spooky new electronic thing that's going to break everything potentially, you know. It's now become part of everyone's kind of setup in a way. So where was I going with that question? I've just lost my chain of thought. But
well, it's about pro level becoming local level becoming more pro because of the better the quality of gear, I guess. That's getting released for.
Thank you, Chris. You've helped me regain my thought chain.
Pull it in.
So I broke the fourth wall now. So where I was going with that was, you know, we have the EAD10 right now. Where do you see the future of something like the EAD10?
Oh, wow.
It plays the gig for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's weird. I mean, because the EAD10 was developed for drummers to record videos at home. That was the only reason it was developed. It was for that. So because YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff, and people finding it difficult to get everything together, so that was built. And it was only after it came out that everyone went, oh, I could use this for live. Oh, I could use this for this. Oh, I could use it for that as well.
Typical drummer.
Typical drummers. In the direction of that, it's going to be using it more for live, because I think more people are using it for live now than they are making YouTube videos. I mean, obviously you can do both.
Do you think it would become something that, you know, people start chaining them together to make a bigger sort of spread of microphones to get them, you know, if say you've got Gavin Harrison's kit, it's only going to pick up so much of that. It's not going to pick up the whole thing in the same way that microphones will.
No, I mean, it's never going to, the EAD is never going to replace a full microphone rig. It's just convenience. It is just being able to turn up and mic your kit in 30 seconds and then just go to the sound guy, look, there's left cable, there's right cable. That is
have at it,
I mean, and for that, it's fantastic. But I don't think you're going to see it. You won't see it replacing a full miking system on an enormous kit like Gavin's. I mean, that's and also Gavin is so particular about the sound that, you know, he wouldn't. Just two mics is not going to do him. He wants individual separation and everything, and EQ on everything. But for us, everyday sort of, you know, I've got a gig tonight. I don't know whether I need to take mics, but I'll just take the EAD10 anyway. Then it's absolutely perfect. So it's not designed to suit everybody.
Switching gears a bit, just the power now that you can get for recording your drums from electronic kits is something that's just. It's kind of become next level, eh?
I actually had an email today from someone asking me about how to record using an EAD. And it's just like, well, it's really simple. You just press the record button. And the email back was like, sorry? Yeah, just press the record button. Big long gap, you know, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, I see what you mean. It works. So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm the worst person for this, because I just assume that everyone sees things with a geeky head on it like mine, and they don't. And I've got to sort of go, no, hang on, whoa. Slow down. But yeah, I mean, it is next level now. You know, the fact that I can record my drum kit just by pressing one button now, and it sounds great. And I mean, I know people who've used it in commercial recordings, and I know someone who actually did I won't mention the name, but they did the advert for Avid. Avid make Pro Tools. Pro Tools is sort of like, the biggest well-known pro software for recording, and yet they recorded the drum part using an EAD.
That's wild.
Oh, an EAD? Man.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought you were maybe going to say like a DTX or something where they can multi-track it. Wow.
No, they recorded the drum part on an EAD.
Bravo.
Yep,
Bravo.
Kudos. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think the last time we spoke, when we were the last podcast we
first
tried
time
to do, you were telling a story about how electronic drums basically fooled Bob Clearmountain.
Oh yeah. So yes. So Bob Clearmountain is the mixer. He's the mixer. He's the guy who, if you want to have a hit, you get him to mix your track. And a friend of mine called John Atkinson, who is just one of the most amazing drummers, because he gets the acoustic side and he gets the electronic side.
Fascinating guy.
Oh, brilliant guy. Brilliant guy. He was doing an album for somebody, and he recorded the drum parts at home on a D-Drum 4 kit, mided up to his Mac, which was running Superior Drummer 2 at the time. And Superior Drummer 2 was slightly different from Superior Drummer 3 in that there was a big red button inside the software. You push that and it sent out all the individual what would be a microphone stream. So there's the snare track, and you can hear the bass drum quietly in the background, and you can hear the toms and all the bleed, everything. It is just like you're having a multi-track kit. And he sent the parts to Bob Clearmountain, and Bob Clearmountain didn't question. He just assumed that it was an acoustic kit. He didn't question it at all. So that happened when I was moving into my last house, and I was trying to build a studio in the garden, and it was just like, right, I've heard that I don't need to have acoustic drums in my studio.
What really freaks me out is the level of quality it's got since when I first met you. I first met you on the DTX Extreme 3 launch.
Yeah.
Yamaha launched that, and all the dealers went to Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
And you were doing the product demo. So from that kit to now, and that space of time has been inside 15 years, because obviously we are 15 this year. The level that it's at now is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, everything has moved on. So it's the quality, the audio quality of stuff nowadays is just fantastic, which is brilliant.
The rate it moves is kind of freaky though. It's like it feels like it's super accelerated.
I think what it is we're just more aware of it now, because if you go back 15 years, the technology was progressing pretty fast, but we just looked at stuff and went, wow, that's amazing, it can do this, and then went off and used our acoustic kits and came back and then went, oh look, that does this. But now we're all so much more tech savvy. I mean, we all have computers, we all we all know what we're doing. Yeah, phones. I mean, God, look at Chris just picked his phone up. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm holding my phone up. Why am I showing my phone to you?
Now I'm holding my phone.
Yes. Okay. I mean, phones. I mean, we are just so used to having technology in our hands, which we can customize. My iPhone is different to your iPhone. The apps are different. How it behaves, the ringtone, everything else, and that's what's happening with electronic gear now. I mean, you turn it on and it is your kit and it's your computer, and that's brilliant. It's just fantastic. It's I can see a really nice clean path into the future with
you've just answered my question, because I was going to ask you, do you think it'll plateau or do you think it'll keep going up?
Oh no, it'll keep going up. It'll keep going up. It's the whole is it Moore's law, where everything gets twice as powerful in we'll have them along. It's the new Macs, the new Mac M1 Macs. I thought, computers were pretty good. And then when the new Macs came out, I bought one, and I mean, it's just a different league. I mean, and I can edit feature films on a £600 computer. This is just crazy. Wow. I can run plugins at 0.4 milliseconds latency. It's mind blowing, and that's just one step up. So give it 10 years. One thing I predict is that we will all be moving on to computers. It'll be less hardware based. We'll still need pads. There'll still be loads of different pads, and pads will look fantastic and feel and look even more like acoustic drums, but it's going to be more computer based.
When are modules?
Oh, sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to say, when are modules getting replaced with phones?
Not for another few years.
Okay.
There's just not quite enough firepower in them yet. The latency is really good. I mean, I've tried triggering stuff off an iPad Pro, a latest iPad Pro, and it's getting really good actually. So yeah, I mean that's what it's going to be. It's it will be that sort of thing. But then it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about Bluetooth and everything else. You shouldn't really use the device you talk to your mother-in-law on to trigger your drum kit sounds on a gig. That's probably
someone starts calling you in the middle of the gig.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I have done silly stuff like that in the past, but it was only just as an experiment.
Yeah, just imagine that though. You're walking in at the venue, your whole drum kit sound is on your phone.
I mean,
and you drop the phone and it smashes to bits. You know,
and then all of a sudden you have to learn to tune an acoustic drum again because you got to go and get your acoustic kit out, and everybody thinks you're a dinosaur.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you mean a drum key? What?
but that's the thing. So if there's one thing that people can go away from this one, with a little nugget, always have backup. That is the most important thing. Always have backup.
I've learned that one the hard way on multiple occasions. I remember I was doing a gig with a Jersey Boys tribute band, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they wanted to trigger certain like moments. I think it was kind of a mashup between like, because they have the Jersey Boys musical and all that kind of stuff. Like there was a mashup of that where there was vocal cues and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, great, I'll be able to trigger that using my triggering module, and me being thinking everyone's using a triggering module these days. That's great. And so I didn't have a backup, obviously, because I never did. And the SPDSX lost power and it just stopped working. So we had to they more or less had to try and learn how to say those like segments off by heart in like about half an hour, because it was fine at the sound check, and then just for whatever reason, I went to check it just to make sure, and there was no power going to it whatsoever, no spare power supply, no spare backup of the audio cues or anything. So we just had to wing it. So it's not fun.
But maybe going back to the difference between pro and and local, the only difference between pro and local is that there's more backups on the pro.
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely right.
That's all it is. I mean, it's we're all using the same technology. Okay, the pro side of stuff might have spent quite a bit more money on the same sort of thing, but if it's the first thing you can do is have a backup, then you are protected, and it makes you look better should anything go wrong.
Absolutely. Do you know what I was just thinking about as well? Like when you said when electronics, you see us all going back to laptops, like the introduction of that is kind of already started with the DTX6, because, what would require a laptop, a separate machine to record your own drums, you can just do it straight onto the DTX6 and have more control over, what you can put on the drums, what you can, just all that ability that you would have on a digital audio workstation.
Yeah, I mean, and also I'm going back to the DTX6. The one thing which I know I need to do a video and explain more about this, because it's it's tricky, but you can load, because you can load your own multi-layer samples in. You can it can sound fantastic. It's brilliant. I mean, it's the ability on something which isn't that expensive to sound that good is almost criminal.
It's bonkers.
I did a track recently for a mate using it, and he was kind of gobsmacked. He was like, Jesus, that's That's pretty scary.
Well, I think you let me hear the drums, and you said you didn't tell me anything about how you'd recorded it or anything. You just said, "Is this acoustic drums with the EAD, or is this DTX6?" And I couldn't tell at all. And then you were like, "Yeah, all that you heard, like effects and everything, is DTX6."
Yeah.
Bonkers.
Yeah, it is bonkers. So, do you think there's anything missing electronically from the market that could be good for drummers to have in their arsenal, or do you think we're kind of all covered now?
No, there's actually one thing which is really, really good, but I can't tell you what it is because I know that someone's talking to a company about it.
Okay.
But it's basically, it's something which will help teaching online, because let's face it, we don't know what the future holds. When we went into lockdown, everyone suddenly went, I need to sort out my online teaching. We don't know whether we're going to have to rely on that in the future a lot more. I mean, all my teaching's gone online, obviously, because everyone's got to. And it's, that's going to be the big area. There's going to be a big expansion, I reckon, in online teaching, how you would teach with an acoustic kit online without it being a right pain in the proverbial neck, whatever. So that's the only thing. I mean, and everything's just going to get better. Everything's going to sound more realistic. And despite what anyone might say, the look of stuff is really, really important. So A2E kits, I mean, if you don't know what an A2E kit is, an A2E kit is you take an acoustic kit, and it can be any acoustic kit. You can stick mesh heads on it and triggers and plug them into your drum module, and it looks like an acoustic kit. It has the sounds of your electronic kit, but it's just much more satisfying to play. And that's where I think everything's going to go. I mean, it makes sense.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, really cool.
So if people want to dig you up, find you, where can they do that?
eDrumInfo is my website, and you can get hold of me through that. I'm always on. I'm answering people's questions on Facebook and all the usual suspects, all that sort of stuff. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, but it occasionally gets ridiculously busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, it's great. I mean, the drumming community is really good in that we generally help each other.
Yeah.
And so. It's just nice to be part of it, I guess.
Yeah,
nice one. Thank you so much, Simon. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming
we
on.
got there. Second time's a charm. Hey.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So we'll catch up, I guess, soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? And we'll be able to get our hair cut and all that.
I know, man.
I can't wait.
Oh, COVID here. COVID here. I think that's the most challenging thing.
Totally, yeah. So no, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Great to see you as always. And hopefully I will be traveling north before too long.
Yeah.
I will see you there.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Drummers Only Radio.
You can find us online at www.drummersonly.co.uk.
Drop us a line. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Drummers Only UK.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We're on Apple, Spotify and YouTube.
Any questions? info@drummersonly.co.uk is the email, or if you need leads, it's leads@drummersonly.co.uk.
Thanks again for listening,
and we'll see you next time.